This video is brought to you by Squarespace. With 3 Splatoon games out, we've got a bunch of different bosses now, so I'll be ranking them from least favorite to favorite. This list is based on how much fun and / or creative the fights are. So with that said, let's get her ranked. 22. The Rampaging Octowhirl. With as much Splatoon 1 as I played back in the day, I completely forgot this boss exists. That's kind of a theme with most Splatoon 1 bosses actually. You fight an oversized clam that builds up speed and rolls his ink across the ground. All you have to do is make a puddle of your ink to slow him down, and you win. He gives you so much time to do this too, even when the stage is spinning around. While Octowhirl is really creative, he's also super easy. In fact, most of these bosses have unique ways of going about them, but there's not much to write home about with this creepy looking clam. 21. The Dreaded Octonozzle. I swear, this guy was featured in some modern Disney movie. He fits the part perfectly. This machine covered in seaweed has suction cups that you have to shoot to reach his weak spot. He fires little pellets at you, but they're so zombifyingly slow that you would have to purposefully run into it yourself. The only change for each phase is you have to hit more suction cups, and that's about it. The main danger is missing the jump since the bottom is covered in his ink, but the odds of that happening are minimal to none. 20. The Mighty Octostomp. He ain't that mighty. While this boss is one of the most iconic in the franchise, you'll have next to no trouble taking him out. He rushes forward and smacks the ground with his ink, which gives you tons of time to climb up his walls and hit the weak point. It does get slightly harder since later phases introduce parts of the wall you can't ink, but even then there's barely a struggle at all. I just like how goofy his face looks. He looks terrified the whole time. And can we talk about those legs? I mean, those are some smooth ass legs. Are they naturally like that, or does someone else shave the hair off? I don't actually want to know the answer to that, so please don't tell me. Don't even try to, just don't think about that, okay? 19. Octo Samurai. By far, one of the coolest names any of these bosses have. You face a big ol' chonker riding a unicycle wielding a humongous roller. If anything, he should be an Octo sumo wrestler. But hey, I'll let him be who he wants to be. His attacks are a little more deadly. You'll need to keep a good eye on his roller as he'll swing it down and smack you silly if you're in the wrong spot. He does a lot of hopping around avoiding your shots, so this is a game of patience and weaving around his roller. But this is not the best version of this boss. In fact, a lot of these bosses have multiple variants. 18. Revenge of the Octo Samurai. If you weren't being patient before, you're gonna be forced to this time as you're stuck using a baller special. Normally it's super useful, however, the roller has a habit of knocking you off the stage in one hit. So to avoid that, you need to attack when he's vulnerable or you're in front of a gate. And even then, they don't guarantee your safety. As long as you keep your distance, you'll probably be set, especially since the baller's splash damage is big enough to hit from fairly far away. 17. The Ravenous Octomaw. I love how this thing is literally just Poochie from the Yoshi games, but also has a tail and is turned into a robot. So basically, Octomaw is going to swim in the ground and his ink will pop up. You need to escape by shooting his teeth before he gulps you down. Then, you'll need to shoot more teeth and throw a splat bomb in his gullet. While again, it's not the most challenging boss, there's something really fun about knocking out the teeth and chucking a bomb inside him. I guess it's because you have such a direct target, and the payoff is your bomb dealing massive amounts of damage. 16. Octo Oven. If you like puns, then you'll get a treat with this boss. The text is loaded to the brim with bread-related puns, and you basically fight a bunch of ovens stacked on top of each other. The bread do be looking pretty tasty, but after he lunges at you a bunch of times is when you'll climb up with your ink and attack the weak spot. The other phases introduce trickier patterns, and even entire walls of ink that you have to swim with or you'll get burned to a crisp. Some of the bread will also add metal walls that you can't ink on, but it's not really a hindrance at all. Most Splatoon bosses are fish related, while this one is literally just a group of ovens. And boy is it an awesome touch how the bread is completely overcooked when you beat this boss. I just noticed that while writing this, and that is such a Nintendo charm. 15. Octo Oven XXL. No, the oven isn't taller like you might expect, but instead there's a crap ton of enemies in your way this time. The oven stab attacks are a bit faster, and there's ink sprinklers and a variety of enemies that perch up on top. You would be surprised how tricky it is to get up there without taking out the enemies first. It's basically a requirement to do this or you'll get splatted. You're pretty much always sitting in enemy ink no matter what you do. It can be really hard to escape, but that's what makes this one better. The added challenge adds more exhilaration to what was originally a simple boss. 14. DJ Octavio, Splatoon 3. Man, does it feel weird to have a DJ Octavio fight this low on the list, but here we are. He's a fun surprise as the tutorial boss in Splatoon 3's campaign, but because of who he is, I had high expectations to be challenged to some extent, and I wasn't at all. Now, yes, I am aware he's the first boss of the game, but this is DJ Octavio we're talking about here. He's let himself go. You still shoot the fist with your ink so they fire back at his face, and that's really about it. Sometimes he'll shoot faster, spinning corkscrewy fists and shockwaves, but don't expect any other attacks. It just feels very strange considering how ambitious and incredible the Splatoon 1 fight is, but with the context of the story, it makes sense because he doesn't have the great Zapfish. DJ is the least of their problems, which just drives home how much more epic the final boss is. 13. Octo Shower. One of the craziest shower heads you can imagine. It sprays ink down and kinda just flies around. He's also able to use certain specials like the Splatling and Stingray, which could be a pain to avoid at times. Since Octo Shower is so high up, you'll need to use boost and ink rails to get an attempt at hitting the Octocopters, as they're the only thing keeping him afloat. Once you shoot them all down, you just hit the tentacle and repeat. It's the first Splatoon boss that starts to feel a little challenging, but it's more or less about staying on top of him and keeping close. I always feel like I'm doing something wrong since my shots only barely hit, but I think that's just how it's supposed to be. 12. Octo Shower Supreme. Did anybody order an Octo Shower Supreme? This battle is almost exactly the same, except this time you're forced to use an inkjet, and the shower attacks are much faster too. You get time to see them coming, but holy crap, he just kinda zooms across the stage without any hesitation. In a lot of ways though, the inkjet is easier to use simply because there's more opportunities to hit the Octocopters. 11. Octostomp. The Splatoon 1 version was kinda lame looking back, but they definitely beef him up a lot in Splatoon 2 and beyond. Besides DJ, he's the only other boss to be featured in every Splatoon game. The big difference is after the first phase, he covers himself in armor, and you can only attack his buckle. And this buckle happens to be right where his nose is. So immediately, this boss goes from being a sleeper to, oh shit, I gotta pay attention, since getting squished by him is much more likely, seeing as that's the only spot you can hit. And for the third phase, his face multiplies into 3, making it even more difficult to avoid his attack. If I could give a boss a glow up, I'd have to give it to Octostomp. He really upped his game quite a bit. 10. Frye. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of annoyed to see Octostomp yet again in Splatoon 3 as Frye's boss battle, but at the very least, the fight itself is very different with these brand new eel attacks. There's a bunch of different attack patterns. You need to hit the eels with red icons so they'll launch back and hit Octostomp. The yellow ones are decoys, and by the second and third phase, they serve to be quite a nuisance. The Octo Whirlpool in particular is tricky if you aren't paying attention to the eels slowly spacing themselves out, but alas, it's still a lot of fun. I just don't get why these eels come from the same old boss yet again. You still climb up the wall and have to hit a stun Frye. Like, why not just make some new enemy instead? 9. Octostomp Redux. This is basically the exact same boss from Splatoon 2's OG story, but he has the armor on for all 3 phases. He's also a bit more aggressive. In fact, you've got safety edges for when you'll inevitably get hit and need somewhere to go. When he's knocked down, bubbles fly out, and if any of them hit you, say goodbye to your current attempt. The second phase has even more bubbles and buckles on the sides, so not only do you need to shoot some of them to survive, but you still have to maintain ink for the buckle while avoiding Octostomp's attacks. It starts to pick up, but the third phase makes you hit 3 buckles, and there's even more bubbles in your path. I cannot believe the stark difference from Splatoon 1 to this game. It just blows my mind. 8. DJ Octavio, Octobot King 2. I'm in agreement with everyone else that the ending to Splatoon 2's vanilla story is underwhelming, but that's because we're comparing it to Splatoon 1. Even if this isn't much for a final boss, it's still pretty solid. As usual, you'll need to shoot his fist to launch them back for some hits. He also uses massive sub-weapons and unleashes the wall of ink that covers a good chunk of the stage. While all this is happening at the same time, it gets to be a little overwhelming just like with the first game, but definitely not as intense. Once you move past the first phase, the second phase is entirely held on ink rails. You'll use the Rainmaker to hit the fist and have to jump over the fast spinning ones. It's not all that difficult, but it looks and feels pretty badass. And then you finish him off by stabbing his brain with the Rainmaker. That one's gonna leave a mark. 7. Agent 3. People say that CPUs don't exist for the Inklings/Octolings, but they must not realize that Agent 3 is a thing. You fight either male or female Agent 3, depending on which character you're playing as, and my goodness are they aggressive. They swarm around your ass, and if you're not on top of it, you'll get splatted quickly. Agent 3 has phases like everyone else, but they're a lot more subtle. You can tell by the amount of times you knock him down. He may spam curling bombs, the baller, splashdowns. It can be a lot to handle. But with some practice and learning what all the phases are, you'll get the hang of it and be able to take him down. He's not the agent to be worried about, however. 6. Inner Agent 3. Sweet merciful Christ, it's just a friendly, bro. I mean, seriously, Inner Agent 3 does not f around. They've got more health, much more aggression, and all the dodging they do it's just the worst. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but it feels like our Splatter Shot has a shorter range than Inner Agent 3's, because I always seem to hit later no matter what I do. Throughout all 5 phases, you'll need to avoid tons of auto bombs, which normally isn't that hard to do, but because of how aggressive the Inner Agent is, you'll constantly get stuck in their ink, which means auto bombs are deadly. And if you get hit and have the red sparkles around you, you're very likely gonna die since you slow down to a crawl and almost all attacks are fast and hard to avoid. This boss can get really irritating for me, but even still, it feels so good to slowly get better and learn strategies for getting around and surviving. That last phase with all the splashdowns is just, whew, don't die here or you're gonna turn into a little rage baby. Guaranteed. 5. Shiver. How is it that we've never had a shark boss until the 3rd game? With Shiver, she drives one around, and it'll attack with waves of ink from the bottom and create these whirlpools on the sides while blasting a laser. This is some Sharknado nonsense, and I'm all here for it. I recently had to beat this guy with only bombs, and it was honestly even more fun since I had to be more strategic with my throws and ink consumption. You can even throw a splat bomb in the shark's mouth for extra damage. This is just a super enjoyable boss to take down. It's nothing too crazy, but it doesn't need to be. You fight the greatest fish known to squid kind. 4. Big Man. At this point, everyone has made the comparison of how Big Man is basically the Mario Sunshine Manta Storm, but I don't know if I'll ever get over the fact that this is a real thing that's happened. And the boss itself translates perfectly into Splatoon, despite functioning almost exactly the same, which is just remarkable. You'll need to hit Big Man with your ink and he'll split into pieces. The decoys will attack you with missiles and jets of ink, which can make it tricky to hit the real one. If you're not paying attention, it's really easy to get stuck in ink and get destroyed by a couple missiles, so you'll need to be hopping around the best you can. 3. Commander Tartar. After disappointing fans with DJ's lackluster fight in Splatoon 2, Commander Tartar brings the music down. And I mean that in the most literal sense. My god, the music is so tasty and addicting. The goal is to hit a bunch of hyper bombs around this statue's head and body, and as long as you know where the bombs are, it's not too terribly hard. But I don't even care if the fight is on the easier side. The music really sells the entire experience. I love Calamari Ink Nation as much as the next guy, but Off the Hook is one of those songs that will literally be stuck in your head for several days. Even if you aren't a Splatoon fan, this would fit perfectly at a casual rave party or something. It's very energetic and has this intensity to it because we're on a time limit to hit all the hyper bombs in less than 3 minutes. It's honestly worth getting the DLC just for this final fight. It's really that incredible. Haha, there we go, got my pun in. 2. DJ Octavio, Splatoon 1. Like Commander Tartar, the music is what really makes this fight so good. But beyond that, the actual boss is a tough cookie. There are so many goddamn phases that I can't remember them all, and that is awesome considering the rest of Splatoon 1's bosses were just alright. The main idea is to keep hitting his fists just like the other 2 times we've mentioned, but the huge difference is the large amount of enemies you have to avoid, and the stage layout constantly changes. This keeps things fresh, as the game loves to say. In fact, over 5 years ago, I made a video about why this was the best Nintendo boss of all time. And honestly, it still might be one of the best bosses ever. The jump in difficulty and fun is beyond invigorating. Play ping pong with a bomb, avoid shockwaves on this narrow path, destroy missiles before they become a problem, and I haven't even listed half the things you'll have to do. It's kind of shocking that this can even be topped. 1. Mr. Grizz. I've thought about it for a while, but I really do think Mr. Grizz takes a slight edge as the best boss in Splatoon so far. The music may not be quite as catchy as the other games, but the fight itself is so ridiculous and zany that it has to be number 1. First off, Mr. Grizz is a big talking teddy bear in a game that's mostly about squids. That alone is hysterical, and we fight him in space by collecting the eggs from Salmon Run and throw Small Frye at Fuzz to get closer to his weak spots. Just saying all that is absolutely absurd, and why I love Nintendo games so much. You never know what you're getting yourself into, and it's almost always memorable. After the first phase and weakening the spot on his stomach so Small Frye can eat it, the damn ship starts spinning around, and you have to survive while avoiding enemies and Grizz's attacks. This gets seriously intense, almost more so than DJ Octavio ever does. Once you get all 3 fuzzballs, the ship explodes, and as you're flying to your death, DJ Octavio swoops in on a UFO with a massive vacuum cleaner, and you basically have to, I guess, clean up his act. While this is happening, there's fuzz boulders to avoid and more enemies that distract you on top of the ship. Not only is this the most Japanese thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's difficult too. It took me quite a few tries to get the hang of this fight, but once you do, and you finish him with a massive laser attack, all ends and you're left feeling very satisfied. Man, I can't believe what just happened. Like, seriously, this fight is so over the top. Add Squarespace. A lot of you may not remember this boss all that well, but it actually expands beyond Splatoon 3. I'm sure you've heard of them before. They're the best and most powerful place to create the slickest websites online. You can connect your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content, manage members, send emails, and leverage audience insight, all on one easy-to-use platform. You can make a community on your website with a fully integrated commenting system that supports threaded comments, replies, and likes. Use their blogging tools to categorize, share, and schedule your posts too. And that's not even including Squarespace Extensions, a new third-party tool that lets you manage inventory, promote products, streamline bookkeeping, reconcile and file sales tax, and ship items across the globe. So check out squarespace.com/Nathaniel and get 2 weeks and get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to Squarespace for helping fund Bandy's universe. I imagine this video might get outdated in a couple years because of Splatoon 3 DLC, but I wanted a chance to rank all the bosses since I'm such a huge fan of this series and I'm so glad to see how far it's come. But with that, thanks for watching and I'll speak with you all soon. Until next time.